It's real. Like the person that y'all see in the interviews and the clips, like that's exactly who he is. Joe is one of the best people I've ever been around.
Kobe can't respond, so Tatum did. Paul Pierce sat down at a microphone in November 2025 and said something that stopped NBA Twitter cold. Not because it was smart, not because it was backed by data, but because of who he was talking about and the fact that that person can no longer walk into a room and answer back. Pierce appeared on the No Fouls Given podcast to discuss the greatest faces of the NBA. And when Kobe Bryant's name came up, Pierce said flatly, confidently, without hesitation, Kobe was never just like the face of the league. Let that sit for a second. This is Hoop Action TV, and we are closing in on 1,500 subscribers, a milestone built entirely on honest, fact-driven NBA breakdowns. If you have been with us from the beginning, this one is for you. If you are new here, hit subscribe, drop a like, and share this video because the story you are about to hear is the kind the mainstream never gives enough time. We are almost there. Help us get over the line. Now back to Paul Pierce, a microphone and a name that cannot defend itself. What Pierce said was not a slip. It was not taken out of context. It was a deliberate, on-record opinion from a man who spent his entire career in the same era as Kobe Bryant. And within days, one of the most respected players in the current NBA responded, not with a shrug, not with a vague social media post, but with a single word that cut through everything: cowardly. That word came from Jayson Tatum, a Boston Celtic, the guy who grew up in St. Louis, who set his alarm for 5:30 in the morning because of Kobe Bryant, who wore 24 as a kid, not because he was a Lakers fan, but because of what that number represented. When Tatum called Pierce's comments cowardly, he was not defending a rival franchise. He was defending something he personally built himself on. This is that full story, from Pierce's original take to the evidence that dismantles it, to the night Kobe turned a torn-out newspaper photo into championship fuel. To understand why Tatum's response hit the way it did, you first need to understand the exact weight of what Pierce said and the pattern it fits into. Pierce's claim was not that Kobe was overrated in isolated moments or that LeBron James eventually surpassed him as the league's commercial face. His claim was that Kobe was never just like the face of the league. That is a categorical statement. It is not nuanced analysis, it is a dismissal, and it did not come without a pattern. Pierce did not arrive at this microphone with a blank slate. Over the years, he has made a habit of these takes. He argued that Pau Gasol deserved the 2010 NBA Finals MVP over Kobe Bryant. In a series, Kobe averaged 28.6 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 3.7 assists. He dropped Kobe entirely from his all-time top 5. In 2008, the same year Kobe won his only regular season MVP and led Team USA to Olympic gold in Beijing, Pierce declared himself the best player alive. And now, in 2025, 5 years after Kobe's death, he says Kobe was never the face of the league. Notice anything? Every single one of these takes was delivered after January 26, 2020. Pierce never said any of this when Kobe was walking into arenas. He never said it when Kobe was suiting up and could physically step onto the same court. He waited. Jayson Tatum noticed. Let us deal with the actual facts, because Pierce's argument does not survive contact with the record. Kobe Bryant entered the NBA directly from high school in 1996. From that moment forward, his name became one of the most recognizable in sports, not just basketball, but all of sports globally. From 2000 to 2010, Bryant brought the Los Angeles Lakers to 7 NBA Finals. He won 5 championships. The first 3 came alongside Shaquille O'Neal, who swept Finals MVP all 3 years. That is an accurate and fair point. But the 2009 and 2010 titles, Kobe was the engine. He won Finals MVP both times. He carried an aging roster in 2010 through a Game 7 against Paul Pierce's own Boston Celtics, finishing with 23 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 assists while shooting through a broken finger. From the time he entered the league to the day he retired, Kobe Bryant dominated endorsements, commercials, television appearances, and cultural conversations in a way very few athletes ever have. He was the global face of Nike basketball. He was the player young kids imitated in driveways from Los Angeles to the Philippines to Italy. Players wanted to be like Kobe. Fans wanted to move like Kobe. One fan online put it simply after Pierce's podcast appearance: "Nobody ever shot a crumbled piece of paper across a classroom and yelled, 'Paul Pierce.'" That line is funny. It is also completely accurate. Now, to be fair, there's a legitimate conversation buried inside Pierce's messy claim. Bryant's first 3 championships came with O'Neal as the dominant force. And by 2009 and 2010, LeBron James had already begun building his case as the next face of the league. These are real data points, but Pierce is not making a careful analytical argument. He's making a broad dismissal without acknowledging any of those nuances and doing it at a microphone where no one can push back. Tatum acknowledged this directly. Pierce, he said, was not talking about the times Kobe shot efficiently or the championships or the cultural footprint. He was cherry-picking the low-efficiency games and calling it a legacy audit. That is not analysis. That is editorializing without accountability. Here's where Pierce's argument does not just bend, it collapses. The players who actually guarded Kobe Bryant tell the same story every single time. The details change, the language changes, but the conclusion never does. They knew the move, they had the scouting report, they ran the defensive scheme, coaches drew it up on the whiteboard before the game, and Kobe scored anyway, and sometimes he told them what was coming first. I still couldn't stop it, and I knew what he was about to do over and over and over again. That quote is not from one player. That is the collective experience of every wing defender who spent a decade trying to contain him. There's a story well documented and verified by multiple sources, where Kobe walked past an opposing team's huddle during a timeout mid-game, told them they had left him too much time on the clock, and then went back onto the court and hit the game winner. He did not trash talk after the fact. He announced it in advance and then delivered. That is a different level of competitor. Robert Horry and John Salley, two men who won NBA championship rings alongside both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, have both said publicly that the gap between those two was barely measurable. These are not commentators. These are men who competed at the highest level in two separate eras and stood in both locker rooms. Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan's co-pilot for 6 NBA championships, went further. Pippen stated directly that Kobe had the killer instinct gene, the one thing that separates all-time greats from everyone else. And Pippen said LeBron does not have it to the same degree. Now here is the moment that matters most in this section, because it is the moment Paul Pierce himself gave away the verdict. In a different interview, at a different microphone, in a different mood, Pierce once said that going up against Kobe Bryant was like playing against Michael Jordan, that when he looked into Kobe's eyes during a game, he saw Jordan's reflection staring back at him. That quote exists. It is on record, Pierce said it. So the same man who told a podcast audience that Kobe was never just like the face of the league once admitted that facing Kobe felt like facing the greatest player in NBA history. The audience can do the math on that. This section requires slowing down because what happened here defines everything. It is August 2008. The Boston Celtics have just demolished the Los Angeles Lakers in the NBA Finals, 6 games, complete and convincing. Paul Pierce was part of that team. Celebration was real, the trophy was real, the humiliation delivered to the Lakers was real. Weeks later, Kobe Bryant is sitting in a lounge at the 2008 Beijing Olympics with members of the women's national basketball team. He is not at a podium. There are no cameras pointed at him. He reaches down, picks up a newspaper, and tears out a photograph of Paul Pierce. He folds it carefully. He puts it in his pocket. Someone in the room asks what he is doing. One word: motivate. That is it. No speech, no elaboration, just a folded piece of newspaper and a single word that carried the weight of an entire season's plan. 2 years later, in Game 7 of the 2010 NBA Finals, Kobe Bryant beat Paul Pierce for his 5th championship ring. The Lakers won. Kobe won Finals MVP. Pierce and the Celtics went home. One man celebrated a trophy in 2008 and moved on. The other turned that celebration into fuel, stored it quietly, carried it for 730 days, and cashed it in on the biggest stage in basketball. That is the difference between a competitor and a commentator. Pierce can sit at microphones in 2025 and say Kobe was never the face of the league. But Kobe already answered that argument. He answered it in 2010. He answered it without a podcast, without a hot take, without a camera in his face. He answered it with a newspaper clipping and 5 championship rings. On the Pivot podcast, Jayson Tatum was asked about Pierce's comments. He did not hedge. He did not offer diplomatic balance. He said, "I think it's like cowardly to be honest because they didn't speak about him like this when he was here. Now that Kobe isn't here, we want to bring up the times where he wasn't as efficient or he shot long twos." Read that again. Cowardly, not questionable, not unfair, cowardly. And consider who is saying it. Tatum is not a Laker fan. He is not someone with a franchise loyalty that obligates him to defend Kobe. He is a Boston Celtic, the same franchise Pierce played for, the same franchise that beat the Lakers in 2008. There is no geographic or organizational bias pushing Tatum toward this defense. He arrived at this conclusion entirely on his own terms. He grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. He set his alarm for 5:30 in the morning to watch Kobe's workouts, to study his footwork, to absorb the habits. He wore 24 not because of the Lakers, but because of the standard that number represented. Kobe Bryant was the reason Jayson Tatum trained the way he trained. Tatum also addressed something specific, the double standard applied to Kobe's volume shooting, and it is one of the most analytically precise points made in this entire conversation. During Allen Iverson's MVP season, Iverson averaged 31.1 points per game while shooting 42.5% from the field and taking an enormous volume of shots every night. The NBA world celebrated that. It was warrior mentality. It was heart. It was AI doing what AI does. Nobody reduced Iverson's legacy to his shooting percentage. But Kobe, who delivered comparable volume over multiple seasons, with 5 championships attached to his name, gets the efficiency critique weaponized against him retroactively. The standard applied to one player was completely different from the standard applied to the other. Tatum saw it clearly. That dude meant like everything to me, and this energy wasn't the same when he was here. He's not defending a statistic. He's not defending a franchise. He is defending what Kobe made him into as a player and as a person, starting from a bedroom in St. Louis at 5:30 in the morning. The fact that this defense came from a Celtic, from someone inside the franchise that beat Kobe in 2008, makes it more powerful, not less. It removes every possible accusation of bias. Tatum had nothing to gain from saying it. He said it anyway because it was true. There's a category of things that exist in basketball that do not show up in shooting percentages or efficiency ratings. They show up in training rooms and in tape sessions at midnight and in the quiet decisions a player makes when nobody is watching. Kobe Bryant played 20 NBA seasons on a body that should have broken down years earlier. Broken fingers, damaged shoulders, knee injuries that would have ended other careers. He held that body together through discipline and ice and an approach to recovery that teammates described as superhuman. His philosophy on failure was documented directly. It doesn't exist. If you fail on Monday, the only way it's a failure is if you decide not to progress from it. Pierce wants to reduce Kobe's legacy to a mid-range shooting percentage. Shooting percentages do not capture what happened one night when a teammate arrived at the practice facility at 7:30 in the morning for an early workout. Kobe was already there, already lifting. He had completed a 40-mile bike ride the previous night at 11 p.m. and had gone straight into the weight room. Nobody asked him to. Nobody scheduled it. He did it because that was the standard he held himself to every single day for 2 decades. Pierce was not on that schedule. Almost no one in the league was. Then there is April 12, 2013, one of the most watched moments in NBA history that had nothing to do with a basket. Kobe Bryant's Achilles tendon tore during a game against the Golden State Warriors. The sound was audible. He went down. And then, instead of staying on the floor, instead of waiting for trainers, instead of accepting the arm that was extended to help him up, he walked to the free throw line, made both free throws, and walked off the court under his own power. He refused every hand the trainers offered him. Pierce's legacy includes the 2008 Finals wheelchair incident, where he was wheeled off the court dramatically, only to return minutes later and play effectively. Both men have defining moments. Only one of those moments became a monument to what an athlete can will himself through. This part of the story does not need decoration. On the morning of January 26, 2020, a helicopter went down in the hills above Calabasas, California. Kobe Bryant was killed, along with his daughter Gina and 7 others. The NBA went quiet. Every arena in the country held moments of silence. Players wept openly in locker rooms. Coaches could not finish press conferences. The entire basketball world stopped. Jayson Tatum described that day directly. You know, when you're younger, you feel like your idols are invincible. I went to my room, I broke down crying. Tatum was 22 years old. He was in his 3rd NBA season. He had spent his entire childhood modeling himself on Kobe. And on that morning, the man he had built his work ethic around was gone. Inside that grief, there was an unspoken agreement across the entire league. You do not cheapen what this man gave to the game. You do not use a microphone to revise his legacy when he cannot sit across the table and respond. That agreement held for years. Then Paul Pierce broke it. He broke it not once but repeatedly across multiple podcast appearances and interviews, building a revisionist case against one of the most documented careers in NBA history. He waited until the man was in the ground and then he started talking. Tatum did not let it pass. He used one word on record by name. Cowardly. Here's what the record says, not opinions, not feelings. The record. Kobe Bryant won 5 NBA championships. He won 2 Finals MVP awards. He won 1 regular season MVP. He was an 18-time All-Star. He was a 15-time All-NBA selection. He was a 12-time All-Defensive Team selection. He was the NBA scoring champion twice. He finished his career as the 3rd all-time leading scorer in NBA history at the time of his retirement, a position now held at 4th after LeBron James surpassed him. He won 2 Olympic gold medals with Team USA. From the moment he entered the league in 1996 to his final game on April 13, 2016, when he scored 60 points at age 37, in his final professional appearance in front of a sold-out Staples Center, Kobe Bryant was one of the most watched, most studied, most imitated, and most feared players in the history of the sport. He did not need to be the only face of the league to be a dominant one. The 2000s NBA had multiple giants: Kobe, Shaq, LeBron, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Dwayne Wade. The debate over who is the face is a legitimate one with multiple reasonable answers. But the claim that Kobe was never just like the face of the league, said flatly without qualification at a podcast microphone, is not a reasonable position supported by evidence. It is a revisionist take delivered at a moment when the subject cannot respond. Jayson Tatum, a Celtic, a student of the game, a man who woke up at 5:30 a.m. in St. Louis because of Kobe Bryant, called it exactly what it was. Not a bad take, not a controversial opinion, not an overreach. Cowardly. Paul Pierce grabbed a microphone. Kobe grabbed the moment in 2009 and 2010 with a folded newspaper clipping and a word he kept in his pocket for 2 years. The scoreboard recorded one of them. Newspaper stored in a pocket remembered the other. History does not require Pierce's approval to make its final call. If this breakdown hit you, drop a comment below with one word. What do you think of Paul Pierce's comments? Justified or cowardly, just like Tatum said? The comment section is yours. And if you want more real, fact-driven NBA breakdowns like this one, share this video with someone who needs to see it. The truth about Kobe's legacy deserves more than a podcast take. If you enjoy real NBA breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next. Stay locked into Hoop Action TV.